how did you earn the title shot against Petr Yan?
I won. I earned the title shot with Petr Yan when I beat Corey Sandhagen when we were both the highest ranked opponents in the division. The title was vacant at the time. Henry Cejudo had vacated the belt. And then myself and Corey Sandhagen, we had the best winning streaks in the division so far. Sandhagen coming off a win off of Rafael Sunsao at the time, a flying knee knockout, and also beating John Lineker. And then myself beating Pedro Munoz, who just beating Jimmy Rivera, then beating Pedro Munoz, and then fighting Corey Sandhagen. So 3 top 5 guys in a row. I beat all 3. And after I beat Sandhagen, I was the last man standing.
So, do you feel like you should have had the title shot sooner?
I feel like the fight between Corey Sandhagen and I was for the belt, in my opinion. We were the highest ranked guys. We had the best, highest marquee wins in the division. I mean, I beat 2 top 5 guys in a row. He was the third. He beat a top 5 guy, and then he was fighting me for a number 1 contender spot when the guys that ended up fighting for the title beat a 42-year-old retired Uriah Faber and beat a Jimmy Rivera that I just beat. So I don't understand how that warrants a title shot. And then the other guy on the other side of that was coming off of a split decision loss to Marlon Moraes. So when we do MMA math, you can't really do that, but the merit system holds pretty true. And I think the consensus was at the time that Sandhagen's fight and myself was for the undisputed title. And we were, whoever won that was going to be considered the uncrowned champ.
And did you feel like that after you beat him? Like, did you feel like you felt like that and the rest of society?
I felt like I was a champ for sure. I felt like the MMA fan base felt the same as well. They knew Petr Yan was good, but they felt the fight that he was having didn't make any sense in comparison for what was on the line in comparison to what we've done. And I think they were right about that. And, you know, we had our matchup last year. It went the way it went. Not my best night for whatever reasons that I've already talked about ad nauseum at this point. But
Go talk about it though.
we get to do it again.
Why do you feel like Petr Yan's title fight for the vacant belt was illegitimate?
I feel like Petr Yan's fight for the title against Jose Aldo wasn't a legitimate title fight. To me, it was just another fight in the bantamweight division because you have Jose Aldo coming off a loss, jumping right into a title shot after losing his bantamweight debut, even though I did think he won the fight marginally. But it wasn't uber impressive by any means. But it was cool that he came down from 145, the longtime king. And then you have Petr Yan, who beat Jimmy Rivera after I beat Jimmy Rivera. And he had a 29-28 fight with him. I unanimous 30-27 across the board. And at no point in the fight was I ever in any type of trouble with the matchup, kind of like how he was in that fight at certain points. And then he beat Uriah Faber, and then somehow that warrants him a title shot who wasn't even ranked in the top 10 at the time. So I think it's pretty simple and fair to say that the fight between myself and Corey Sandhagen, we were arguably the best guys in the division at the time with the best win streaks, and we should have been fighting for that vacant belt.
Why do you think Peter got that shot? Why do you think they gave it to Jose and Peter when they did?
I think the UFC gave the title shot to Jose Aldo and Petr Yan. I think they gave it to those guys because of a popularity contest. I mean, you got Peter Pan, it's got the whole country of Russia behind him. And you have Jose Aldo, who's a longtime king, and King of Brazil, King of Rio, they call him, the King of Rio kid. So for him, both those guys have done their part in terms of building a popularity and a fan base behind them in their respective regions. And I think with the UFC, we all know it's what have you done for me lately, and how many clicks and how many buys can this guy get us in comparison to how many fights has this guy won, but maybe he's not as popular and maybe not making as much noise. So it's cool. I get it. It's business first, entertainment second. Maybe he's 50-50, I should say. But to me, that's why he got the title shot.
So you beat Corey Sandhagen, you get the title shot against Petr Yan. Going into that fight, how was your camp?
Going into the fight with Petr Yan, I felt like I had a great training camp. My training camp was phenomenal. I felt like I was in probably the best shape of my life, outside of my neck, but that's something I've been dealing with for years at this point. Outside of that, physically, mentally, I felt great going into that fight. You know, I got to have the walkout with Iaquinta for his fight with Khabib, so I know there was nothing about nerves, feeling like, oh, this is unfamiliar, this is a bigger thing for me. It felt like I belonged there. It felt like that was my moment. So for me, that had nothing to do with the performance. It had everything to do with what I did the day of the fight. And I tell people this time and time again, like, you can have the best training camp, which I felt like I had, but the day of the fight, depending on how you feel that day and what you do that day and the night before, can really throw everything off that you did for 8 to 12 weeks. And that's exactly what happened.
Where do you think you messed up in those days right before the fight?
I think I messed up the day of the fight. I had a beautiful morning shakeout, 20 minutes strong, hard pace. Felt like my lungs would never get tired. Felt like my arms, my muscles, everything felt phenomenal. And then just not eating the way I normally do right after, not putting the fuel back into my body to actually go a 25-minute pace for what I put out and the expenditure of energy. It was just way too much for what I put in back into my body after having that morning shakeout. So anyone who was there that day, and they saw, it looked like I was possessed by a demon that morning, you know. So to go from that and then to go to what I did that night was just, to me, just disgraceful in the sense of that's not even a glimpse of what I'm capable of, you know, especially for how hard I worked. It was very disheartening for myself because I just know how much I put into it, and I know that's not even a fraction of what I can do. And it won't happen again. COVID really messed things up for the aspect of how people normally do things. So to kind of have to make those adjustments without actually having dealt with it before. I mean, the Corey Sandhagen fight, they let me do what I wanted. We were able to report at a certain time. As long as we reported back before that time to take our COVID test, we were good. So I got to do everything the same, kind of, sort of. Leave, go get food, eat with everybody, all that good stuff. And then this one, I kind of just resorted to what the UFC PI team gave me. And I only ate the breakfast. I didn't eat the lunch, and I didn't eat the dinner, not realizing that I was fighting at 8:30 compared to 4 o'clock, and sometimes even earlier than that when I normally eat a lot differently. So at the end of the day, it just comes down to the numbers, nutrition, and everything. So again, based on what you do that day and the day before, sometimes it can really affect how you perform the night of, no matter how great of a training camp you had.
Can you explain, like, why eating, if you know, can you explain why eating so little the day of the fight can drastically reduce how much, how far your cardio can take you?
I think it's simple in the sense of, if you've ever worked out before, people, and you get tired, you get fatigued, low calorie counts, I think that stuff is pretty easy and simple. I don't want to say simple, but easy to understand. When you wake up in the morning and you do a workout and you don't put the stuff back in you that you normally do, to have a hard workout, to have a hard pace, it's just different, you know. So trying to run a marathon and not putting the fuel in your body, you're gonna see why you feel like shit. You ever cut weight and then try to have the same intensity of a workout that you do when you're eating everything and you've been training? You feel great, you feel amazing, you could feel like you could keep on going. But when you cut down and you start cutting weight, you lose those calories and you're not putting it back in your body. You feel like shit when you're working out. You get exhausted a lot faster. Your energy levels are pretty low. You don't have the carbs in your body to burn for energy. And for me, I'm super lean, so I don't even have fats to burn for energy, you know. So when you don't put the proper nutrition back into your body, there's no fuel. It's like trying to drive a car on air. It just doesn't work, you know. And that's the simplest way I could put it. When I stepped into that cage, it felt like I was still cutting weight. And I was like, this sucks. I feels like I'm labored right now, and I'm just trying to get through a weight cut to cut the last few pounds and just make weight so I can step on the scale and eat. That's exactly the best way I can describe how I felt that day. So whatever people want to say, people want to believe, they can take it with a grain of salt. They could think that I'm full of shit. It really doesn't matter to me, because at the end of the day, I was the one that was in there. And if Petr Yan was so high and mighty, he would have knocked out a guy who had no punching power or wasn't able to pose a threat, so to speak. Because if a guy really has nothing for you, he's not going to have anything for you.
Did you feel walking into the cage a physical difference than you normally feel walking into the cage?
I've 100% felt a difference when I walked to the cage. I felt the difference when I was in the hotel room and I couldn't figure out what was going on. That's the weird part. Because you wonder and you're asking yourself questions like, is this nerves? Is this my body reacting and shutting down on me in the biggest moment of my career? And it comes right back to, no, you just botched your nutrition moments before, hours before the biggest moment of your life, kind of thing. So I learned that really quick. Just after going over the day and talking to everybody step by step, breaking down everything I ate. And the one culprit that came back was, dude, you didn't put the proper fuel back in your body. And that's as simple as it gets. And I even felt in my morning, while I was in the back room warming up, I felt like I didn't even have the energy to go through the warm up. And I was like, I feel like I need to just save what I have now, because I'm not going to have much for the fight if I try to warm up any harder, because I was just tired doing the warm up. And I made sure I didn't tell anybody anything, because it was just like, the energy everyone gives is always think positive. I'm like, dude, you could think as positive as you want. If there's no gas in your car, I don't care what positive thinking, that car ain't moving nowhere. So all the positive thinking is like, coach, I should have been able to feel comfortable where I can say, Ray, I feel like shit right now. I couldn't shake this after the morning workout, and I'm not sure what to do at this point. Help me figure out what strategy I should try to approach this game with. Because before I was going to gas pedal him, and I tried to do it anyway, and I didn't have the energy. And had I been able to be that much more open and feel comfortable being that much more open with the guys, I would have told them. And maybe we could have game planned a better approach. Maybe we would have said, in hindsight now, let's stay long with our jab and just pick our shots. Circle when we could circle, and push them up against the cage when we could push them up against the cage, but don't force the takedowns. And that could have been a completely different fight, and still on my worst day. So there's so many different things. In hindsight, it's 2020 all the time. So at the end of the day, I take full responsibility for what happened to me, because it's myself ultimately at the end of the day. But feeling that type of difference from any other day when you feel like you're on top of the world and you're ready to go out there and just show out is very, very frustrating. And it's been a long year, and I just can't wait to get back out there and just right the wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, he was the better man that night. Yan was definitely the better man that night. And that's why people say today, any place, anywhere, anytime, because it's supposed to mean any place, anytime, you're really the better person. But for me, I felt like that day, he was just the better guy. And I just don't think he's the better fighter. That's just my personal opinion.
Now, explain how the first round went, in your opinion.
The first round, to me, I thought it went pretty well. I think I showed my capabilities, because the game plan was switch from, we're going to take this guy down multiple times and just be relentless, to, you know what, I'm just going to try to punch this guy in his face as much as I can, and hopefully I could get him out of there early. And I felt like I did well. The only thing that sucked was my energy levels. I do feel like that kind of gave me some cloudy judgment. After I took him down with ease that first time, I started throwing hammer fists, which is something that's uncharacteristic of me. I never do that. I take full pride in position before submission and trying to do damage. Always solidify the position, create the chaos, make them feel the panic, wearing your opponent, and then when the submission comes and presents itself, you take it. So to go against my own fight theories and my own concepts was very telling that I wasn't in the right state of mind. And you could kind of see it in my face. Just everything I did was extremely labored. And other than that, I felt like I still, for the most part, I didn't put a lot of power behind my punches, but I never really do. Maybe the Pedro Munoz fight and the Cody Stamen, I put a little more stank on those punches. But for the most part, I just like to touch, volume, take them down. And I thought the first round was good until I was like, this guy's not doing anything. And then he punched me with a right cross, a slip right cross, and then sat me on my butt. And I got right back up and I said, oh, we're in a fist fight. This guy is still actually trying to compete, because I was really confused by his approach. I was like, he's doing literally zero. And I knew after he got the knockdown, I had to erase that again, even though I did all the damage for the first 3 minutes of that fight. I just need to erase that out of the judge's head. So I got up and started putting the pace back on him again. And I thought it was a good, if I'm going to say I fought at 50% or whatever percentage, I feel like that was a good showcase of what I can do on an off night and still make a fight competitive with the guy who's supposed to be the best in the world, because he has the belt that he should never have fought for anyway. But he's considered the champ, and I feel like if that's the best guy and I was able to do that, then what happens when he fights myself at 100?
Yeah, that is the question. If you were judging that fight, unbiased, completely, would you give yourself that round?
Yes, 100%. I think I 100% won that round. I don't think one shot and one mat return takedown that he did should erase the 2 jump knees that I landed on his chin that rocked him back into the cage, the takedowns, and all the strikes that I landed in that first round. I just don't think those 2 moments can erase all that damage. I'm like, people can say, oh, your shots didn't have anything effect on him. I'm like, all right, so if I had no effect on him, there should be no reason why the guy is falling back into the cage trying to grab on to hold himself up, So people can say whatever they want, but the numbers should count for something. When you pretty much 4-1 somebody in strike count, I think that warrants some type of that should warrant a win in a round. Otherwise, you just say I should go out there and just land a haymaker, and even if they cover up, or if I just could just knock them off balance, that makes it look like I did something great. Clean strikes should count. And I think all my strikes, for the most part, were clean, splitting the guard, the knee strikes through the middle, the takedowns, and all the other shots that I was landing to the body. I think for me, that wins the round.
What do you say to the people who think that your strikes, basically, you landed a lot of strikes that amounted to no damage? There's a lot of people who say that. What do you say about that?
Damage doesn't need to be physical all the time. It doesn't need to be seen. Some people don't bruise easy, some people don't cut easy, and then some people bruise easy and they cut easy. So it looks like they're having a way worse night than sometimes what it might actually be. So for me, if I'm touching you up, that's a win. So I don't see how you can discredit someone getting punched in the head and saying that it did no damage. Like, why is it not doing damage in your opinion? Because he's not falling all over the place, or because his shots seem to be pushing me back more when I'm kind of just off balance and whatever. I'm like, if that's what we're grading it by, then it should be equal across the board. It shouldn't be because of this particular fight you're comparing his strikes to my strikes. What's the difference? At the end of the day, we're scoring it on criteria. So the criteria is landing the clean strikes. Was my strike clean? Yes or no? And that's what it comes down to. If it was a clean strike, it scores. If you're saying I just tapped him and his head pops up, I don't know what else to tell you. Just because he's not being bruised up doesn't mean the strikes aren't having a type of effect on him. Otherwise, if my strikes were so ineffective or had no power on it whatsoever, what's to stop the power puncher from just eating one on the chin and just walking me down and just landing a barrage of punches and just swarming me and then getting me out of there? You know what I mean? So it's just like, you have to use common sense and actually be able to understand the situation. And I think if you've actually fought, you know what you're looking at and know what you're dealing with. Because it's not like Khalil Roundtree and myself fighting, where he could just walk through my punches and knows that anything I throw at him is not going to hurt, and I'm just going to knock this guy out. You know what I mean? That's the difference in that type of situation. So for me, if he could have done that, he would have. But there was a reason why he couldn't. So I let the people be the judge on that. Like if he was so high and mighty, I guess they use the same approach that people will say about Iaquinta versus Khabib. They say, oh, he was just playing with him. I'm like, if Khabib wanted to get him out of there, and he could have, he would have. No one wants to sit there and play with an opponent who is known to be a striker and known to possibly be able to put you out because they're known for their power. So, not to even to bring that up, but I'm just trying to give it a proper comparison. If he could have gotten me out of there, he would have, and he would have done it earlier rather than waiting till later, where you got his cornerman screaming "head show," which means everything when he's being defended, when he's trying to defend a takedown and things like that. So there's things in there that I felt and that I realized with Yan that people would never be able to see from the outside perspective, just seeing the TV. And I think he has a respect for what I brought to the octagons, which is why he couldn't just walk through my shots to just try to lay me out.
You clearly, you unanimously won the second round. There's not much to say. You controlled the fight, I think.
Like 2.5 minutes of that round, and I doubled his strike counts in that round as well.
Yeah, there's no, statistically and passing the eye test, there's no way to say he won that round.
But the strikes were ineffective, they say.
So, I think it's the third round where things, it seems like that's where the gas tank started to run on fumes.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
I would say round two. Round two was a struggle.
Well,
round two, when I went from round one to round two and I went to the corner, I saw Dana White clapping with the biggest cheesy smirk on his face, and he gives me a big thumbs up. Khabib sitting next to him. And in my head, I'm like, if he only knew that I could do this for days, but today's just not that day. And that's how I felt in my head. And I felt like not a big disappointment to him, but obviously he's the boss. And it shouldn't be like that, but I felt like I was letting him down because he granted me this moment. And what was looking like a promising fight, I wasn't going to be able to deliver on that. And I knew that was pretty much all I had left in that fight in my gas tank. And at the end of the day, I was like, yo, I'm just going to have to just take my ass whooping like a man. That's just what it came down to in my head. I already made peace with it, when I made that walk. But in that third round, from what people were able to see from the TV, I was done. But I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to roll over. I wasn't going to let him get his hands around my neck and wait for a few seconds and then go, okay, I'm done. I'm a fighter. I'm going to fight through every single position. The only way to get me out of there is to take me straight up out. You just have to take me straight up out because I'm just not going to just be that guy. Covers up and just sits there and waits for the ref to pull him off. I'm not looking to do that. And the day I do that, maybe it's time to hang him up and I have to question myself if I really want to be in there anymore, So that's the type of attitude and the type of mentality I bring whenever I do anything. Competition, that's just the type of guy I am. So third round, I noticeably got tired and gas tank, and that's when he starts taunting and doing all these things. And for me, I'm just like, just stay the course, just keep hitting him. Maybe I could have my Miesha Tate Holly Holm moment and maybe get him down one more time and choke him out. And I'll look like a hero. So that's just me, man. I'm going to fight. I'm like Darren Cole when he wrestled Brett Metcalf in the NCAA finals. There's 6 seconds left on the clock. Darren Caldwell's winning. He locks up the win. There's no way Brett Metcalf can win. But Darren Caldwell walks back to the center. He's celebrating. He's taunting. And then he does a backflip. And in midair, Brett Metcalf chucks him doing a backflip because the match isn't over. And I get both sides. You can't do anything about this. I won already. He's expecting him to accept defeat. And he's not accepting defeat. He's going to wrestle until that whistle blows. And that's how I am. And at the end of the day, I was in that fight till the wheels fell off. And just tough moment.
So you don't feel like morally at all wrong for accepting the belt and stuff?
Well, I didn't accept the belt. The video footage shows me leaving the belt in the cage. But the belt showed up at my house.
How did it get there?
I have no idea. It
just was delivered?
I don't think delivered. I'm pretty sure one of the coaches probably grabbed it. Maybe Nick Sick. I didn't even know who took me back from the hospital because I was going through the day, going through the night with my friends and trying to recap the day. And I had to start texting guys like, who brought me back from the hospital? Because I don't remember any of that. And now because people told me, you're able to start putting back pieces to the spots that were kind of blacked out. And you kind of like, oh, I think I remember that. Or maybe I'm just making it up in my head because they just told me that. But Nick Sick told me, he took me back from the hospital. He came with me to the hospital for my CAT scan. Longo told me that Mark Smith came to the ambulance truck before I went to the hospital to tell me, just to check on me, he said. And I just thanked him for saving me from myself. But I don't remember saying that to him. But these guys do. So for people to try to tell me what was faked, and I didn't even remember the interview. I knew I asked to do an interview. I didn't know what the fuck I said. I had to go back and watch the video to see what the hell I even said and what could I possibly wanted to ramble on about in that moment. So I think people trying to discredit me in a way that makes me seem like I'm weak or a coward. It's bizarre to me because I'm like, dude, I fight. This is what I do.
I think people I think there's an easy to follow narrative that's been crafted where it's like I think people think you knew you were going to lose that fight, so when you got kneed in the head, you knew it was illegal, so you acted it out so that it looked bad, people would sympathize with you, and then you would get the belt again and you would be able to get your shot, and then that was extenuated by when you were like, I'm not going to fight Petr Yan again, like you were trolling, but everyone took that suit, like people didn't realize you were trolling. But
I never once said, from what I remember, I never once said I wasn't going to fight Petr Yan again. I think what I said was, from what I remember was, what other sport do you get rewarded for getting disqualified? Like the playoffs, if you're in the playoff finals, Super Bowl, NBA, you can't get disqualified and to get an immediate rematch. It doesn't work like that. You have to work your way back to getting to that position again. This is the only sport, the NBA, wrestling, no other sport works like fighting where someone could be winning, get a tech foul, they shoot the free throw, when there's 1.3 seconds left on the clock, they make it, they win the game that they were losing, and you gave them a chance to win the game when you just had it locked up. That's on you. You see what I mean? So it's just like, people got mad at me for pointing out that flaw in our system, but it's different. It's fighting. So people are like, well, you were losing, so you should never have won. But I'm like, but if we agree to a set of rules, no matter what, if you did something wrong, how does that fault me for being the competitor abiding by the rules? You took yourself out of the competition. And it might sound weird to say because it's a fight, but what other sport would that happen in? None. But for me personally, texting Dana White while I'm in the hospital because I got the receipts, telling him I can't wait to have the rematch with that guy, and then trying to get back into the gym and realizing I can't even work out. Just imagine how frustrating that is for wanting to right that wrong as soon as I could, but not being able to. He told me, done, exclamation point, because I told him I wanted an immediate rematch. Then they try to make it, but whatever. That's neither here or there. It's the narrative that they try to create. One, there's never been a DQ for a world title. Two, there's never been really, I don't know any other situation where there was a DQ in the UFC. So it doesn't happen. So for people to think that because I knew it was illegal that I was going to win the belt, no. I thought it was going to be a no contest, and I thought they were just going to go on to the next fight because Dana, what he always famously says, I think we know how that fight was gonna end up. We got to see that one already. We don't need to see that one again. So for me, I'm like, okay, I had a one and done opportunity, didn't even get to complete the task. The fight's over. So if I had my 5 minutes, again, I would have tried to continue, but the ref and the doctors saved me from myself. And that's just the way it is. And at the end of the day, I'm thankful and I'm grateful for that because, again, taking more of a beating in the state that I was in, I don't think that fight was getting any better. But I still believe that could have had a Misha Tate moment. Somehow dragged him down. He could have made, because again, he was tired. His poker face was just spot on. But when you see a guy in front taking his deep breaths, I know what's up. He knows what's up. That's why he couldn't just run through me. Because if he was this cardio machine and all this, so efficient with his energy, he would have buzzsawed through me like he could have, like a freaking butter on, what? A butter knife and hot butter, whatever. But he didn't do that for obvious reasons. So that's the way I look at it. And we're going to get to do it again at the end of the day.
So you said you went into the ambulance, people came and saw you. You don't remember much of that at all.
Which part?
After you got kneed in the head, you blacked out.
Not blacked out, but a lot of it's a blur. The only pieces I know, because it's been a year now, and talking to people, they've kind of pieced together what happened. Coming back to the house, what I remember was getting a CAT scan, being in bed, texting Dana. That I vividly remember. Getting back to the house, having a headache, throwing up, my boy giving me the belt, forcing me to take out the belt and forcing me to say, I'm a UFC champion. There's about 30 people in my house, you know? So whose idea was it to have you stand there in your kitchen in that state? Because actually, back it up. What state were you in when you got home? Like physically, how did you feel? What was going on with your body? Because I don't think people know this. When I got back from the hospital to my house, there was about 30-something people at the house that flew out from New York and other places to come see me. Obviously exhausted. It's now 11:30, so I was at the hospital for quite a long time. Haven't eaten yet, so I'm still starving from that 10:30. 2 pancakes and 2 eggs. I haven't eaten anything all the way up until 11:30 when I got back to the house. I think I had like a piece of chicken that was like left over because I literally had nothing in my body. So I have a headache. I'm exhausted. I'm sore. And I throw up. And I still have these obligation of just talking with everybody and thanking everyone for coming out, which I did. And my fiance, I think it was her, she told me, it's like, hey, if you don't want nobody here, we could get them out. I was like, nah, I feel terrible. Everyone spent all this money coming out to come hang out and come see me. It's not like I'm in the hospital anymore, you know, so the least I can do is just hang out for 1-2 hours before going up to bed, you know. So that's what I did. And during that time frame, I forgot who, because I didn't even know the belt was at the house. The belt showed up at the house somehow, sitting in the middle of the kitchen, talking with everyone. Someone brought the belt over. And I was like, oh, shit, this thing is actually real. This actually happened. Because it didn't even feel real. Like the night, the day, it felt like a dream. It felt like a movie. It felt like it wasn't a real life thing that just transpired. And then there's the belt right in front of me. I'm like, wow, this actually happened. I actually won the belt by not, you know, by within the rule set, whatever. They take it out and they tell me to just, you know, this is what you've been working so hard for. You know, obviously not the way you wanted to win it, but you didn't do anything wrong. You follow the rules, and it might not be the way you want to do it, but you get to defend it, and you get to do it the right way the next time if you want. And that was pretty much the words of encouragement that I had to just enjoy the moment. And I was like, you're right. There's really nothing I could do at this point. I can't take back what happened. And my boy, one of my best friends, Enoch, he was telling me to just say, he asked me a couple of times before I actually did it, to say I'm a UFC champion. I just kept laughing. I was like, dude, I don't even really want to say that. Like, yes, I am, but at the same time, I'm just like, I just don't really feel comfortable saying it. But eventually got over it, said it, and yeah, here we are. That video came out, and then the media made it look like you were celebrating. Yeah. That the winning in that fashion, like you felt it. They tried to make it seem like you thought it was, like what it, you know. Like, and that's my issue with media. Are you TMZ? Are you trying to be a journalist? Like, what is your exact role? Are you trying to have an opinion, like an opinionated piece? Because if you're reporting the media, report the news of what you see, but don't give your opinion on what you think, because now you're changing into something else. Now you're painting a picture for other people, which it's not supposed to be your role. Your role is to report the news of the sport that you're covering, unless I got it completely wrong. So when you're doing an article and then you're trying to paint someone in something that you don't even have the slightest clue or idea of what actually happened before even getting the facts, you're just making an observation. People talk about Joe Rogan and his platform. They talk about me and my platform. They talk about other athletes and their platform. So what the fuck are you doing with your platform if you're allowed to create a misconception and change people's point of view by using these clickbait headlines and not giving the facts, just giving something that you think is what you thought happened? So that annoys me. And at the end of the day, the media is the media. They are supposed to just report on what they see at the events. Other than that, like, who gives a shit about your fucking opinions? Like, that's the way I truly do feel about them. It's like, who the fuck gives a shit about your opinion?
All of them.
I think so. Ariel, all of them. Every single one of them. Every single one of them that does that.
Explain why the narrative isn't fair or real.
What the narrative that they created?
Explain what's wrong with it, what they're missing.
What they're missing is context. It's literally that simple. What I've been saying for over a year at this, over a year at this point, is the context. Report the context of what happened. Don't report what you think. The same thing Ariel tried to say, I was parading around and asking for a fight with Henry Cejudo. I'm like, I took a picture with Henry trolling because I knew it would get a rise out of people. And eventually I would like to fight Henry Cejudo. What's wrong with that? There ain't nothing wrong with that. We're two competitors at a very, very high level. The fact that I would like to eventually fight him, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And the fact that we randomly bumped into each other and we said, pretty much, let's take a picture to kind of see if the fans would be interested in this fight. Didn't say the fight had to be the very next fight. I got to take care of business. What I asked for to Dana White, I'm not going to backtrack what I asked for. So I take care of business with Yan in the rematch. Henry's still there. TJ's still there. Aldo's still there. Why can't I call for a fight with Cejudo after? So if he's considered one of the best to ever do it, I would like a crack at him, So I think it's fair for me to do that, and it shouldn't be judged in a way where it's like you're running from a fight. I'm like, this is what I do. Why would I run from something that I asked for? That's the way I look at it. So it gets a little weird with that type of stuff, and that's just my opinion. So when they paint the context and the narrative that someone faked. That's the worst part, when they kind of make it sound like I legitimately faked this because they're now officially doctors and they have diagnosed multiple athletes and multiple concussions throughout their lifetime, that they know what the symptoms of a concussion is. They know how compromised and how badly hurt I was. So it almost goes back. There's this like thing that they used to say about black women. And I don't want to make this thing about race, but they used to say like black women can endure a lot more pain than others, so they would be treated differently. Why is that? So you're saying that me, and again, it's not about race, but it makes me wonder, like, what about that situation for me makes it different for somebody else? If they were to get hit with the same type of strike, that it would affect them differently than it affects me, meaning it would affect them less and it would affect them more, and I'm less affected, and that I pretended. We all know what a knee strike is. We all know what a legal knee strike is. We all know with that the shots that you don't see are the ones that do the most damage. So why is it that when it happens to me, it's like weird for that to be true, so to speak? Because I'm just like, I don't get it. You know what knee strikes do. You see me run headfirst into a knee with Marlon Moraes, out like a light. We seen other people that get wobbly legs, all this stuff. But for some reason, for my particular situation, I faked it. Is it because I didn't go out? Is it because I wasn't, you know what I mean? So it's just like, where's the context in that? Where's the perspective in that type of situation where it's like, now this makes sense? Like, I can't rationalize anything that these people say. I can't, because it makes no sense whatsoever.
There's a shot of you right after you got kneed and the ref goes, stop the fight, and you're laying on the ground like, it looks like you have no idea where you are. Like,
yeah.
And there's compilation videos that take, I've watched all these because I want to understand the narrative so I can make this documentary. But there's these compilation videos where they'll take individual like 30-second clips of you saying one thing, saying another thing. One of the clips was you laying on the ground and you're like I said, you just got concussed, and you can hear in the production the ref's mic.
Yeah.
And he's saying like, that's an illegal knee, like I have to stop the fight. And they're trying to make it seem like you heard what the ref said. When you're laying there on the ground after Petr Yan kneed you, did you hear anything that they were saying?
That's absolutely ridiculous for anyone to think that I can hear what the ref is saying.
How far away was he from you?
I have no idea. My head just got smashed. I'm not thinking about anything like that. I'm trying to think if I'm okay. Like, dude, what the fuck just happened? What did I just get hit with? Those are the thoughts going through my head. Not, yo, man, this is your opportunity, bro. Fucking, you can't blow this one. Like I don't get it. I can't, like, my brain doesn't work like that. I can't compute. I can't relate. It's just really bizarre to me that people can even try to think that that's something that someone would look forward to do. Like, they compared me to Juan Aspinall, and now this is where I start trolling. All the other fighters that it happened to, Darren Stewart and his fight with somebody else, Juan Aspinall and Romero Romanov, the heavyweight. I think he got like hit in the nuts, and he said he couldn't continue, but he was exhausted. Then the girl Luana, who was winning the fight against Ronda Marcos, gets hit with an up kick while she's on the ground, and she's dominating the fight. Mind you, the fight's only about one round in, but she's dominating the fight. And they told her the same thing, she was acting and faking. I'm like, listen, I can't tell you the reaction for strikes you do not see. When they hit you in the head, it's completely different. We just see Molly McCann knock somebody out and send them to the gulags with a spinning elbow. A girl that was coming back in that third round strong, and one spinning attack that lands flush on her chin that she doesn't even see coming. She doesn't even turn to realize that she's about to get hit with something to kind of brace, tense up, or anything. It just comes out of nowhere. So just imagine walking down the street and someone just cold clocks you. You're more than likely going to sleep. Period. So prove to me otherwise that shots that you do not see don't hurt the most, because they do. They fuck you up the most. And that's the best way I can put it. So for anyone to think that, oh, I heard the ref, or I knew it was going to be a disqualification, I would like them to prove that to me. How can you prove that to me? That, okay, in this situation, this happened and this happened. We know from studies and this. What the fuck are you talking about? What are you honestly talking about? That's really what it comes down to.
Why do you think that Petr Yan kneed you in the head?
I think he thought he was going to get away with it again. He's done dirty things in multiple fights. Eye pokes, Donson's grabbing his hair, grabbing gloves. There was, I think, Douglas Andrade. He illegally kneed him too, but it kind of like was in that gray area where he kind of got away with it. And I think in another organization he did the same exact thing. So I think it was against Magomed Magomedov, who also beat him, and people said that was controversial as well. You know, so it's just, he has a history for this type of things. And I don't know if his name is No Mercy by coincidence. I think he realized he was winning, And I think all the bad blood and the banter, he really wanted to put a stamp on the damage that he was doing in the fight. And I really think he thought he was going to get a slap on the wrist. And honestly, I thought the same exact thing. In no way in hell did I ever think that this guy was going to get DQ'd for that.
Clear based on your reaction when your hand got raised.
Yeah, I was confused because I was like, wait, what? What? People are actually doing the right thing? People are actually following the rules of the sport and actually enforcing disqualifications that should be a thing? It was news to me.
Moment,
no.
In the moment, that's what you say looking back on it. But what did you think when your hand got raised? Like what were the words that went through your head?
What the fuck? Just like that. Simple as that. When he said you're winner by disqualification, it didn't even resonate because I was like, what the fuck is he talking about, winner? I thought I'm waiting for no contest. I'm not even thinking anything at this point. In my head, I'm thinking it's already a no contest. I think that's just it. And then when I hear you're winner, I'm like, there's no way in hell this guy's winning with an illegal knee. And then when they announce me, I'm just like, wait, huh? And I think you can see it on my face like, wait, when? When has this ever happened?
So I just want you look at Petr Yan like this guy who has a problem with breaking the rules, and similar to how you remember that guy Grayson Allen from Duke, I think his name was. He was that kid who kept like knocking people over on like in the middle of games and like fucking people up, and like he had this issue where he just kept doing it and he kept getting away with it because he was so good. No,
but I think if you're a shitty person, you should be treated as such, or at least I think you should at least be. I think if you're a shitty person, you should at least be held accountable for your actions.
You mentioned when we were doing the podcast, you mentioned like he hit the hypocrisy of how he apologized, and then he started calling you an actor.
Yeah.
Can you break down that situation and give your thoughts on it?
I think that situation with Yan apologizing and then retracting it right away just goes to show the type of person he is. Because he knew what he did. He knew what the intention was. So for him to think that, oh, he's just faking it. I hit him hard, but he was all right. No, he was all right. He was definitely faking that. It's just like, wait, what? That's just like, I don't relate to that. I can't really comprehend or understand the thought process with that one. So I was really confused by that, and it honestly really annoyed me because I'm like, the fact that you can really do something so egregiously illegal, and then have the balls to try to paint me as the bad guy was hysterical. And at that point, I'm like, this guy is really off the marbles. Like, this guy's clearly something's wrong with his head for him to think that there was ever a legitimate reason for him to try to come at me for something that he did. That's where I was with that.
What's going to be different about this fight if we watch them two side by side? What's going to be different about how you come?
I think my swag is just going to be different. I think my swag in this fight is just going to be so much more like the old me, just smooth, offbeat, hard to figure out what the hell is going on in there with this guy, and it's going to be pretty tricky, and everything's going to be a lot more effective in terms of the pop to the punches, the pop to the kicks, being able to bounce out of there, touch, move. It's going to be like a ghost. I want to be like Nightcrawler. When I touch you, you start swinging back, and I'm out of there. And then you got to come try to find me. And then you try to find me, then I'm looking to put you down. And if you defend the takedown, come back up into the strikes. And if you get hit by the strikes and you try to reattack, then I'm looking to put you back down again. So it's going to be a different type of pace that I don't think Piotr's going to be used to. He gave up his back a couple times with Corey Sandhagen. I think he was a little bit more comfortable in that situation, not thinking that Sandhagen's jiu-jitsu is that good. But he better not try that shit with me, because if he gives me an opportunity to take his back and I get the hooks in, he ain't getting out.
Is cardio going to even come into the area of issues for you in this fight?
Not a chance. Cardio is usually never an issue for me. The only time I've ever been tired in a fight has been with Brian Caraway, and that's because I did 3 workouts the day of the fight. all about an hour long because I was so obsessed with doing good because I talked a lot of shit for that one and I wanted to make sure I performed that I went a little crazy in my head and I didn't realize the work was done. That's an experience issue. I learned from that. The fight against Claudio Ledesma on the regional scene, short notice fight. I took with about 2.5 weeks notice. Boring fight. We just wrestled. It's like we had a gentleman's agreement to just wrestle and do jiu-jitsu the whole time. Barely threw any punches or kicks. That was a lackluster fight, I think, for both of us, and I was pretty tired in that one. Title fight, short notice. And the last one, Petr Yan, and I think we've talked about that plenty already, you know. So the Pedro Munoz fight, I think anybody would get tired throwing that many punches. I set the record for bantamweights in that fight. So, yeah, I can keep a high pace, and especially now needing to do that for 5 rounds, best believe that Pedro Munoz fight is going to look like cakewalk.
I think we're done.
Money.